I'll make it extra red.
Greetings all, welcome to the Chop Shop, the series of builds, kit bashes, restorations, and conversions. With a new game room and dedicated table now available to me, I figured it was about time I got working on a proper, full set of terrain. My buddy Dave and I have been playing bolt action on and off for some 3 years, and we've been using a set of laser-cut MDF buildings for our North Africa games. As we've also started dipping our toes into Achtung Panzer and plan on using the same buildings, completing a desert table is a good first project. It also offers an excellent follow-up to the last Chop Shop video where I explored the use of egg cartons and Planipatch for creating terrain. Consider this video as a case study of sorts. If you haven't seen that video yet, do check it out after this one. The buildings we're working with are produced by Northern Lights Terrain and Gaming Supplies out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, up here in Canada. Northern Lights makes a wide selection of quality, affordable MDF terrain and gaming solutions. This particular set is from their 28mm Middle East line. They also have fantasy, western, and sci-fi sets, including one in the style of feudal Japan. They also have terrain footprints for 11th edition 40k for all of you tournament players. Northern Lights is neither a video sponsor nor affiliate, they just make a really good product and I think you should buy their stuff. No matter how well executed MDF terrain is, there's always room for personalization, if not improvement. First thing we're going to do is prepare the bases. I'm using Army Painter's Desert and Arid Wastes Terrain Primer, which is safe for use on MDF. It also happens to be a color match to their normal desert yellow paint, which is what I use for the bases of my bolt action DAK models, so that's a nice plus. This is a good time to mark out wall footprints. At this stage, I don't know exactly what I'm doing for the floors, but I do know there will be variation between the interior and exteriors. As I plan on painting the bases before gluing the walls in, having clear demarcation lines is a useful bit of bookkeeping. These walls all slot into their bases with tabs. The clearance here is pretty tight, so we want to avoid getting our texture paste where it isn't needed. So we are going to protect them with little pieces of painter's tape. Just like painting a model, the time it takes to work cleanly the first time usually offsets the time it takes to fix messy work later. As there's going to be a lot of texture paste flying about, as well as some sanding, I'm laying down a disposable table liner. If you want lots of thick craft paper for cheap, head to the painting section of your local hardware store. This 100-foot roll of 3-foot wide floor protector was about $30 Canadian. This is also a great way to make terrain maps, either for wargaming or role-playing games. It's always a good idea to do a test run before starting large projects like this. Here I did a basic application of Planipatch, PVA, and water to one side of a set of walls to figure out a consistency I like. What I learned was that this stuff dries pretty darn fast. I was continuously adding more water as the mix started curing, and by the time I was on the last section, there were tiny dried crumbs which increased the amount of texture. Given the number of buildings we're mudding, I decided I would mix smaller batches one at a time to ensure uniform consistency across all pieces. A building test also revealed something I had overlooked. The paste thickened the walls enough that the roofs no longer fit. There's no way to scrape off enough to get the tolerance back to where it should be, and we do still want texture. Fortunately, there's an easy way to resolve the issue, which we'll see later. I did one more paste recipe test using the reverse sides of the walls, creating a rather thin mixture with added fine sand for texture. Now, as you spend the next several hours, if not days, slowly going insane while you paint your terrain with liquid rock, it may slowly dawn on you that you're missing something rather important from your table. And then it hits you. That moment of clarity. The epiphany that you're preparing all this beautiful desert-themed terrain, and you don't have any suitable miniatures to go with it. Well, don't fret, anxious hobbyists, Last Sword Miniatures has you covered. Return to Zuckabar in Gladiator and recreate in miniature Maximus's gladiatorial battles with the Blood and Glory collection. Hack and slash your way through your opponents as you climb the ranks, or break free from the arena with your fellow slaves and escape the city streets you've been crafting. Last Sword is your one-stop shop for fantasy and historical STLs. Don't have a printer? Don't despair. They also have a print-on-demand service. You can check out their offerings via the affiliate link in the video description below. All purchases made through it go towards supporting this channel. Now, back to the terrain. In addition to taping the base tabs, I also covered all the lattice work and railings which I plan to paint as wood. The paint peels smoothly and leaves sharp, clean edges. There is still minor cleanup work to do, including a quick scraping along the roofline to get the roughest parts of texture off, but it doesn't take long. Next, a quick coat of our desert primer. Due to the quantity of paint needed for terrain projects, I do recommend turning to non-miniature paints. Amsterdam's standard series acrylic paints come in a wide variety of colors, are inexpensive, and are readily accessible. I've picked colors that match the base tones of my bolt action models and will be using different combinations and ratios to provide a variety of surface tones that should all feel like they're part of the same color family. For the base coat of the walls, we're using a warm gray with a touch of yellow ochre, thinning the mix for a nice flow. While we do want full coverage here, we don't necessarily need full opacity. Having areas where the primer goes through will add visual texture once we finish dry brushing, providing a subtle mottled effect. The first round of dry brushing is a 50-50 mix of warm gray and titanium white, while the second round is pure white using a brush with longer, more flexible hairs. As building interiors and courtyards are naturally darker, we're only applying this final highlight to the exterior. Looking good! For the exposed brickwork and window sills, we're using our mid-tone dry brush mixture of warm gray and titanium white, followed by pure white highlights. As we're applying solid coats without any show-through, the end result is two different wall materials that use the same paints while remaining visually distinct. All that remains is the panel line with dark wood speed paint thinned with waters to pull out the details. When it comes to the wood, we're using thin burnt umber. This color doesn't have great opacity, and even after two coats, there's still quite a bit of show through. However, we can make use of this to our advantage. By controlling the direction of our brush strokes, the yellow primer takes on the qualities of simple wood grain, with the final effect being that of a dark stained wood. I am being very careful with this step, completing the interior work before moving to the exterior windows, then the protruding posts, and finally the wall lattice work. I'm trying to avoid attracting brown stains by accidentally touching the wet paint. Being desert terrain, I chose to do simple highlights in desaturated gray-brown, using a 50-50 mix of Van Dyke brown and titanium white for a mild sun-bleached effect. The last step is to come back in with the same water-thin dark wood speed paint that we used for the stonework. As mentioned earlier, one of the key ways to ensure visual cohesion for elaborate projects is to reuse the same colors in different ways instead of reaching for new ones at each step. I included yellow ochre as a kind of mother color to ensure the buildings fit in with the table mat and models they'd be used with. Change the application technique between stucco and stone and use the same liner for stone and wood. Next time you start a project, think about using a restricted number of paints and see how far you can stretch them. When it comes to roofs, I wanted some flexibility in design. The ones I have little hatches that act as handles for easy removal. However, visually they're a little bit awkward, especially if they're going to be part of photo shoots. So I decided to make the roofs double-sided, finishing the hatch side in the same stucco as the buildings and the underside in wood planks that I hoped would punch up the final result. Unfortunately, no hatch means no handle, which means we need some magnets. The underside of the hatch provides a great place to hide one, since it effectively triples the roof's thickness. A little bit of line work with a straight edge to find the center of the hatch on the reverse side. A little bit of drilling with an appropriately sized bit marked for the appropriate depth. A little bit of sizing with a knife. And a little bit of Gorilla Glue to hold the magnet in place. For all of the roofs where I didn't break off the hatch, I used a rotary tool with grinder attachment to quickly size the holes. We want the magnet to sit as close to the surface as possible, so I'm using a piece of paper and a stack of magnets. The stack pulls the embedded magnet to the surface, while the paper provides an interface that not only fixes the height of the embedded magnet, but also prevents everything from accidentally being glued together. Now for the fun part, laying wood planks. We have a small kitchen supplier in town and they sell 1,000-pack boxes of wooden stir sticks that are ideal for wood boards at this scale. The only thing to watch out for using thin sticks like these is to ensure that they're true and not warped and bent. Once everything is laid out, clamp them into place and let the glue cure. Gorilla Glue cures quickly and I only needed about 10 minutes before I could remove the clamps. A bit of scoring and the overhangs can be snapped off. I recommend saving all of the offcuts as you never know when you might need them. From here, it's a straightforward process to really make the wood pop by scoring it with a metal sculpting tool. First, we define the planks. Then add some coarse grain work. The scraping also helps to remove glue that may have squeezed up between the pieces. With the roof looking good, it's time to make it fit the building. Just remember to wear appropriate safety gear and check the roof's fit as you go. On to painting. The process is the same as for the rest of the building. Stucco the side hatch, prime the whole thing, then paint. Rather than panel lining the wood, we're going to wash it with 2 coats of heavily thin speed paint, patting off the excess with a paper towel. All that's left now is the base. I wanted the ground to retain a similar texture to the siding, but with less grit, and it took a few tries to figure out the correct mix. It's a good thing we traced out those wall lines earlier, though I could have saved myself some primer and done it only once after this step. To better match my model bases, I used a 50-50 split of warm gray and yellow ochre for the base coat, adding white for the midtone, and finishing with pure white. Very pretty if I do say so. The last detail is to add the tile work. There's a lot of beautiful tile artwork in North Africa and the Middle East, and I thought it would be fun to add a splash of color to these buildings. Each building will get its own unique two-tone checkered interior, formed by a dark base color and a lighter version formed by adding white, followed by a round of panel lining, as with the stone and woodwork. And here we are. Great MDF terrain that's been made better with a metric butt-ton of extra work. There are still a few touches to add, but I'm holding off until the rest of the buildings are brought up to this level of completion before finishing them. I'd like to add more detail to the tiles, including cracks, maybe simple patterns, and toning them down with a wash. For the walls, I think a shadow fade on the lower sections, under the protruding beams and in the corners will add a lot of character to them. Once the walls are glued down, I'll need to address the transition gap between wall and base, as well as add some grass tufts and other details. Finally, there is some general cleanup of paint spatters and smears that's best done all at once so I don't have to keep mixing colors. There is one detail that I overlooked and that needs to be discussed. In adding the wood planking, I increased the thickness of the roof to the point where it started overlapping the roof lattice work. This isn't a big enough deal for me to worry about with these particular buildings, but I will address it with any future kits I work on. The MDF is about twice the thickness of the stir sticks, meaning I can glue 2 layers together in perpendicular directions, finish one side as wood and the other in paste without changing the overall thickness. And the roof hatch will still be there to provide a mounting hole for the magnets. As you probably guessed by the video, this is by no means a quick approach to upgrading terrain. What you see is the result of 2 solid weeks of hobby time, and we're not even close to being done. I'll be chipping away at these over the next few months in between other projects. There are more buildings in the Middle East collection that I plan on asking Santa for, including multi-level apartment buildings and a mosque, and I'd like to have everything I currently own completed before I start new ones. That's all for today, folks. If you are in the market for nice MDF terrain, take a look at Northern Light's extensive collection. And if you're in search for models to populate your gladiatorial arenas, or even an entire arena itself, Last Sword has you covered. Links to both sites are in the description below. For those of you who are interested in how I painted my DAK army, I'm planning a full painting tutorial for both infantry and vehicles to be released at some point in the new year. I also have another terrain-based video that I'm planning for September, though the format is going to be a little different than this one. If you've enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching everyone, and I will see you next time.